Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young, as well as the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch. I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer. And the big news this week, gentlemen, was Canada's Farm Show in Regina, and you both attended. Ryan, you found it quite a valuable experience?
Yeah, for sure. For the most part, some takeaways from Canada's Farm Show for this year. Starting with the attendance, I thought it was kind of on par with last year's event. Of course, this is the second year that Canada's Farm Show has been held in March, and I thought it was kind of carried by the Ag in the Classroom Saskatchewan hosting the Think Ag Career Expo for students. So lots of groups of students checking out farm equipment and kind of learning the basics and nuances of agriculture and how everything ties together to feed the world and meet the demand for commodities and etc. In terms of feedback from exhibitors, I talked to a couple of exhibitors that were near our CKRM booth, and I asked the question if they would be returning next year, if what's been happening this year was enough to justify returning next year. And one exhibitor said maybe, just all depending on the business side of things in terms of customers and how many people they meet. They were not really 100% sure. Whereas the other exhibitor I talked to said that they would definitely be coming back because they use events like Canada's Farm Show as kind of an advertising vehicle for their business. So kind of mixed reviews in that regard, considering when I talked to Kat Betker, the director of signature events for Real District, she was saying that she was getting some positive feedback from some other exhibitors. So it really depends on the exhibitor you talk to and the area of which that they're kind of placed. There were some areas like the Bungie International Trade Center that looked like they had more crowd and traffic compared to Banner Hall, where it might not have been so much. So the opinions can definitely vary. So those were kind of the main takeaways I found from an attendance perspective at Canada's Farm Show.
How about you, Kevin? What did you think of attendance there?
Well, and this is my first time being to the March show, and it's a very different show than it was when it was held in June. There's not a lot of the big equipment there. There were some, some big sprayers and other big pieces of equipment and tractors and some cloth combines, but a lot of the manufacturers of the really big equipment stay away because it's really expensive to get big equipment hauled into the middle of downtown Regina. So the focus of the trade show has changed. I think there is some disappointment on attendance on the part of exhibitors, but that may also be just the farm economy and where we're at with the farm economy right now, as far as how many producers are interested in going out and looking at new things. It may be to do with that. I think what really works in favor of Canada's Farm Show right now is the launch pad area, where they had some really good topics, and some of those topics drew a good crowd, and it works well because it's set aside a little bit from the trade show area, so you don't get a lot of noise and interference, and really top-notch audio-visual displays to go along with the presentations, and good presentations, timely presentations. So I think that's a real positive for the show.
Anything at the launch pad that piqued your interest, Kevin?
There was a few things, and I think I mentioned it last time at the roundtable. The launch, really, the Canadian launch of Nexat, which is a really different, revolutionary approach to farm equipment. And Nexat only had a small booth there. They didn't have their giant machine there, but they gave an excellent presentation to what they have for a carrier unit that you can switch between seeding and a fertilizer, a spreader, and a sprayer, and a combine. Excellent presentation, and they also announced that in addition to the 3 big units they were testing near Moose Jaw this last summer, they've got a 4th unit coming in, and they'll have that unit at Ag in Motion, so producers will be able to see the Nexat system in operation. I really believe it has the opportunity in the years to come to really make a difference in how farm equipment, especially on large operations, goes. The other thing, there was a really good biofuels presentation at the launch pad, and I was surprised to learn that if you add it all up, about a third of our canola crop is going to biofuels, specifically renewable diesel, both what is being sent to the U.S. and crushed there, but mainly what's being crushed here and sent as oil to places, especially the U.S. So that's amazing, and it sort of comes to back to hit you when oil prices rise as they have during this conflict in the Middle East, why canola follows along when a third of the canola crop is going to the biofuel industry.
And how about you, Ryan? Anything that piqued your interest at Launchpad or anywhere else on the grounds there?
In terms of the launch pad, the one thing that kind of stood out to me was the Saskatchewan budget insights and reaction from Bill Probilski, the president of the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan, and Deputy Agriculture Minister Bill Grohl. They kind of had a fireside chat kind of style panel discussion, just kind of going back and forth on the budget from their perspectives. And from what I could tell from Bill Probilski's comments, that for the most part, they're pleased with the provincial budget, and I know we're going to get into that in a second. But basically, ticked off a lot of the boxes for APAS in terms of priorities and what they would like to see out of the budget. Obviously, there was a lot of increases to business risk management programs, such as agri-stability and crop insurance, something that they really like to see. And then the only negative that I remember him saying was the deficit obviously isn't very good, not something very good to look at. And also understands that there's a lot of geopolitical and outside factors that are way out of the control of anybody. So those were kind of the comments that stood out to me, and definitely something that stood out at the launch pad.
Well, speaking of the Saskatchewan budget, it was delivered on Wednesday afternoon in Regina. And I believe the agriculture portfolio got like a 6% increase, as many people thought it might actually go down, but it actually went up. What's your reaction to that news, Kevin?
Well, a lot of the items regarding agriculture in the budget are tied into the funding agreement under the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership with the federal government. So it comes down to estimating what crop insurance and agri-stability costs will be. And they're committed to fully funding it. I would suspect that if we get an average production year in 2026, that crop insurance will do okay. But I think unless grain prices increase, we're going to see much more spending in agri-stability. So it could throw the budget out of whack. But from a producer's point of view, nothing really has changed. The crop insurance program is the same. Agri-stability is the same. Agri-invest is still in place. Some minor increases in some other areas, but really a status quo from a producer's point of view. There's nothing really different in this budget that wasn't there in previous times.
And Ryan, I know APAS President Bill Probilski commented on it. It sounded like he was pretty generally pleased with the budget.
Yeah, like I said, he was pretty pleased with the budget for the most part. He was happy about the increases to the crop insurance and agri-stability programs. Definitely something that farmers depend on when they're in a pinch. So he gave a thumbs up on that. There was another thing that kind of stood out as well, just kind of going on a bit of a side note. There was about $200,000 allocated towards the Saskatchewan Farm Stress Line. And there was also a note in the budget that as of April 1st, it's going to merge with the National Farmer Crisis Line. And that was something that the executive director of the Do More Agriculture Foundation, Merle Massey, was pleased with, considering that it kind of falls into, her line of work in advocating for mental health support and, positive mental health outcomes from the agricultural community. So this is something that's really going to boost that support and really help those mental health programs, just in case if farmers need it when they're dealing with all sorts of challenges.
So yeah, it was like Canada's Farm Show, and the budget seemed to monopolize most of the agriculture news this week. But looking ahead to next week, Kevin, Farm Credit Canada will have a farmland values report.
Yes, the regular annual farmland values report looking at what farmland values did in across the country and within each province. They also break it down by region, and that will look at what happened in 2025. And I would suspect those numbers will show that farmland prices continued to increase in 2025, although maybe not at the pace as in previous years. The question is, and will be even after that report comes out, what has happened in the last few months, January, February, March, where we've seen some additional headwinds with fertilizer prices and a lot of people looking at new crop budgets that don't show black ink at the end of the day. So of course, the 2025 snapshot will be the best that we can get for official statistics, but many farmland realtors believe that farmland prices are slowing. But still, the 2025 numbers will be of great interest and will be analyzed closely.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor of SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hirsch, and 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director, Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director, Doug Falconer, saying so long until next time.